We're going to talk now about two more important features of trigonometric functions, the period and the frequency. And once again, here we have a standard sine wave, and we're going to make this sort of sloppy definition of the period as how long it takes to complete one full cycle of the graph. In other words, this repetitive pattern that we see, how long does it take to complete one of those trips around the circle to get back where we started? And we can see with this particular standard sine function that it completes a full cycle or one trip around the circle in 2 pi radians. But we don't necessarily have to measure from 0. We can measure from peak to peak, and we can see again that we've traveled 2 pi radians to get there, or from trough to trough, like the bottom or the minimum of the graph, and we can see that it's always going to be the same period that it takes to complete that. We've got another rather sloppy definition of the frequency of the function is how many of the cycles we would see within 2 pi interval. So we can see with our standard trig function, the standard sine function, we're going to get one full cycle within 2 pi radians. But if we turn on this red function here, we'll see that if I increase the value of b, the multiplier inside the trig function, we get this additional factor of cycles within 2 pi radians. So I increase this value to 2, so I can see 1, 2 full cycles of this function within 2 pi radians. Or additionally increasing this up to 6, say, exactly 6. You can see I've increased how fast it sort of travels through these cycles within this 2 pi window, and that's what we define the frequency to be. Additionally, we're going to have to calculate the frequency and the period between one another, and here we've got our calculation that the period is always 2 pi divided by whatever the frequency is. And here we have this decimal approximation, but 2 pi divided by 6 gives us about pi over 3 radians. So we can see for the period, it took us pi over 3 radians to complete one full cycle of our trig function because we multiplied by 6 inside the sine function to increase the frequency. So there's this relationship between the frequency and the period of trigonometric functions, both how long it takes to complete one full cycle and how many of those cycles might appear within this 2 pi window. Those are the two things in that interrelationship between these concepts of a trig function. It could get flattened out or stretched out so that we would see fewer within 2 pi, maybe half a cycle within 2 pi, 0.5, and the period would be 4 pi to get us one full cycle.